What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Twitch stream. Anybody that wants to watch these live is able to do so. We are going to have, hopefully, the longest running franchise available. Plan on going multiple years. Although I did decide what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually only run one game per night, simply because the two games got a little bit too involved. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the one. Hopefully, that's going to be a little bit easier on the time constraints. Obviously, looking right now at the financial reports of where we are with the league. But I wanted to go back, talk a little bit about what happened last night in terms of the 2020 season. We went 11-6. We lost round one of the playoffs. We lost our starting wide receiver, Seth Cunningham, with a leg contusion. We didn't have any retirees. We went ahead and went through our first draft. Billy Ho, defensive lineman, in the first round. Fernando Black, defensive back, in the second round. Charles Foster, wide receiver, third round. Omar Cruz, offensive lineman, fourth round. Jonathan Sharp, defensive back, fifth round. Cameron Perkins, tight end, sixth round. Gustavo Boone, wide receiver, seventh round. We re-signed our starting quarterback, Max Mikado, and lineman Gary Knight. We re-signed our only veteran linebacker, Clayton Vaughn, releasing the other two starting linebackers. We released the injured Seth Cunningham, a pair of tight ends, as well as a defensive lineman. Our starting defensive back, Terrell Rayner, promoting Guillermo Hart. In free agency, we got Quentin Norman, who rejected a contract to be our starting tight end. We signed Wade Wise to a long-term deal as our starting linebacker, Darren Morris to a long-term deal as our starting defensive back. We signed the worst quarterback available, Jalen Hall, and we traded Kelvin Holmes and a sixth-rounder to Indianapolis for myself to start at safety. We also upgraded the field. In the 2011 season, we went 9-7, did not make the playoffs, but did not have any season-ending injuries. We had 5 retirements, including, kind of a surprise, the defensive back starter Guillermo Hart retired in the draft. Dennis Cummings, defensive lineman, round 1. Steve Hale, linebacker, round 2. Austin Carpenter, defensive back, round 3. Emilio Mason, linebacker, round 4. Logan Bullen, kind of a shot in the dark, halfback, round 5. Christian Hodges, another halfback, round 6. Jalen Hain, wide receiver, round 7. As far as free agency and re-signing was concerned, starting wide receiver Brad Little declined a $12 million per year 4-year deal. Starting defensive lineman Michael Rodriguez declined an $11.5 million 6-year deal. We did re-sign defensive back Jerome Harvey as well as myself. We re-signed both our kicker, Wenger, and punter, Carson. We actually released both starting and backup halfback, which was Chester Taylor and Eric Chambers. We released starting wide receiver, Daryl Holland. We released offensive lineman Gabriel Hodges, Daniel Mann, and Ricardo Hammond, as well as defensive linemen Sammy May and Jerry Martinez. We released linebackers Chavis, Rainer Art Becker, and Jason Young. Decided to go a little heavy-handed in free agency, signing Brendan Steele and Lucas Winston, a pair of defensive linemen. Wide receivers Sean Murray, Corey Ireland. Defensive backs Drew Webb, Alexis Franklin. Running backs Connor Bates, Kobe Waters. Tight end Christian Stevens. Quarterback Jesse Poole. We did actually go back in free agency and try to offer a contract to Chavis Rainer. He declined it, and we traded our defensive lineman Robin Cobb and a third-round pick to Minnesota, who had one of the best defenses in the league, for defensive lineman Samuel Luttrell. So overall, the goal was to get a little bit younger as far as the team is concerned, and I feel like we've done that. Obviously, we need to get a little bit more in the win column, but when you look at where we are as far as player salaries, you can see 2011, we were a little bit heavy, but we really dialed it back last season. We're going to continue to do that, try to build a younger team, a less expensive team, and maybe not even focus so much on the scouting this year because we really don't need any young players. So we'll probably just go with what is going to be the best available. And I did mention on the last concern with the way the practice was going to be, and I'm going to continue to do that. I think we're going to go to the heavy intensity. I mean, we have some younger players, and go ahead and focus on the speed and agility a little bit more. Obviously, we want to focus on the rushing and ball security a little bit more. We're going to deal with pass coverage and rushing, and then we'll focus on strength and endurance the rest of the way. So we'll see how a little bit heavier in our practice strategy works, and we'll go ahead and sim out this season and see how this game goes with the younger players. Looks like we're going to start off with a win. Looks like we're going to start off with 2 wins. Looks like we're going to take a look at we have 2 injuries. We have Omar Cruz with a herniated disc out 7 weeks, and Clark Peters out 4 weeks with a hamstring. So that's a defensive lineman, an offensive lineman. I think we're going to be okay because we have some decent depth there. So we're going to continue to go without them. We'll go 3-0. We will go 4-0. So a much better start. I would assume the same 2 injuries. So we should get Peters back on the next 2 games. There can be a little bit of variation in these players coming back. We just suffered our first loss. So it looks like we have yet another injury here. It is Emilio Mason, who was one of our backup linebackers with a concussion. Cruz has not came back in the time frame we expected because, as you can see now, he has a 3-week recovery, and it had been 2. So, all things considered, I mean, I'm not too worried about this. Mason was not a starting linebacker. I guess we can see if there's anyone out here in free agency that can look to fill those voids. But I'm really not seeing anybody that's jumping out at me. I mean, a C-plus linebacker is not going to make any type of difference. So we will just continue to truck along in the season here. And we are going to be 6-1. We're going to be 6-2. So I would suppose, I mean, unless something horrible happens, we're at least going to do better than last year. 7-2. 8-2. So we were 9-6 last year, barring catastrophic. There's no way we don't have. There's equal to our wins, so we literally would have to lose out, which we're trying to do with that first loss. But there we go, 10-3. So that'll best last season. We're down to 1 injury, and it's our quarterback, which is not good. So Max is out for 4 weeks. That is our starting quarterback as well. So our backup quarterbacks were not meant to actually be playing. Jesse Poole and Jalen Hill were 2 of the worst quarterbacks available. Let's see how we are financially if we have to go put kind of a stopgap player in like Malik Rudolph. Malik wants a lot of money, but we have a lot of money. Let's see if one of these quarterbacks can be had relatively cheap. Guess they're all going to be in that $10 million to $15 million range. Let's see if we can't get Alfonso Allison in here for just 1 year, and we'll offer him $9.8 million. He goes to Philadelphia. Let's take a look at Emmanuel Cobb. He's got no competition, $8 million. All right, let's get him into the starting lineup and see if we can't salvage a little bit of what's left here. So if Max is out 4 games, that's pretty much the rest of the season. So we are going to put him out to the practice squad with the intention of him not playing the rest of the year. And then we will go over and promote Emmanuel Cobb as the starter. And then hopefully we can get the rest of the season out with Cobb at the helm. So 10-3 with Cobb taking over. Gets a win. There's 12-3, which I believe may match that would actually surpass our best season. Our best season was 11-6. It shows the same player, but it actually leads me to believe that Jack Russell, our halfback, is injured. So that's very odd. So I don't know if he's actually injured or not, but it doesn't seem to be creating all that much of an issue. We head into the playoffs here, clearly the number 1 seed. We will play Buffalo, who was 10-6. Just take a look at the stats here and see how our quarterbacks broke down. So, looks like we don't have the stats for Max. Perhaps because he's out as a practice player. I also mentioned this before. I wish they would keep the full stats for the actual players. But Emmanuel Cobb came in 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 58%. Poole was actually 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 58%. So I don't really know that having Cobb come in as that veteran presence really mattered that much more. We certainly threw the ball a lot more with Poole in. We are going to have to make a decision as to who we want to playoffs. And I think we are going to go ahead. I think we're going to go ahead with Poole. I mean, he is our guy, and the numbers were slightly better than Cobb. So we will go ahead and put it on the guy that we signed, and we will lose in the first round of the playoffs. So all things being equal, for a season that saw more injuries than we've ever had, I can't say that was the unexpected result. Go ahead and take a look at how much money we've made. We're almost into profits there, which is a pretty big deal. $14.78 million. But that's disappointing to lose the playoff game like that. So we'll go ahead and simulate out the rest of the season and see where we are going into next year. So this would be the 2023 season. It looks like we do have one retired player, Norman Maldonado. No retired coaches. We'll take a look at how many players we have to sign. It looks like there's 12 contracts. We will go ahead and release Emmanuel Cobb after the season there. We will go ahead and release Peter Hill, more than likely. We've actually had a pretty good run of younger running backs. So we're going to actually release Peter Hill. We'll look to keep Clayton McKinney. As far as wide receivers are concerned, Seth Cunningham continues to just show up on our roster. I think he just wants to play as our team forever. So he is done. Brian Bridges, it's just too much money to play a 30-year-old player. We will release him, and we will go ahead and keep Chad Dean for depth. Toby Clark, we will go ahead. That's a fair contract. As far as our offensive line is concerned, going to go ahead and release Sean Mann, as well as Leroy Hopkins. Only thing left here in terms of a linebacker, Angelo Thompson looks to be pretty expendable, but also wants a relatively low contract. We'll see if we can't get 4 years. Defensive backs. That is a lot of money for a B-plus corner. I think we can do better in both situations without signing that type of money away. We know the punter and the kicker are taken care of, so that is going to leave us with some spots to fill on defense. So we'll have about 8 players that we need, which we can essentially get all through the draft. Need to focus on trying to get 1 wide receiver. Pretty much set at defensive lineman. Our first ever pick, Billy Ho, has actually been pretty decent for us. Defensive back would be very nice. So if we can get a defensive back and then some depth across the, I think we'll be in good shape going into the draft. Taking a look at the player progressions, Jesse Poole actually increased a little bit. Everyone else across the board seemed to adapt well to a relatively good season. Billy Ho is actually up 2 overall, so pretty decent. Kicker actually regressed a little bit. Probably didn't need him all that much given our season. Out to the draft. Go ahead and see who the best player available is. There's a B-plus defensive back with C speed, Nicholas Ritchie. Although I do like Matthew Norman here, but I believe we're going to go with Nicholas Ritchie as our first pick. Go ahead and look through at the second pick here. Isaiah Fisher has a pretty decent mix of awareness, tackling, coverage, just lacks the speed, but is a fit player, and the fit players have generally adapted pretty well for us. So we're going to maybe go a little bit of a reach for Isaiah Fisher. Going to try to get either a running back here or a wide receiver. Casey Ross has B-plus speed. Craig Beck has A speed. Not the fittest player. I feel like Craig Beck is going to hang around for a little bit. So let's go ahead and get Quentin McKinney because he is a bit faster. Doesn't quite have the catching, but is a more fit player. So we are going to try to get... Where were we there with the linebackers? Craig Beck. So we'll remember the name Craig Beck. We'll sign Quentin McKinney and see if we can still get Craig Beck, and we can. Probably could wait a little bit longer than the 5th pick, but let's not. And just now trying to get the best player available, which I have a feeling is going to be a quarterback at this point. And, based on what we just had happen, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to invest in a backup quarterback in the draft, especially when we've got a number of decent ones here. Let's go with Johnny Poole, A-plus throwing power, A awareness, B-plus overall. More awareness than Joe Thornton and Morgan Manzola. I think he'll be a decent 6th rounder. And then our last pick. I mean, we have to draft Keegan Moody, I believe, by default. Anytime somebody has my last name, they're signing. So, here at closing out our draft, go ahead and sign these players, and we'll be done a whole season in just about a half an hour. Don't believe we have any coaches that need to be actually, I lied. We do. So, our head coach is up. Our head coach has a defensive expert, actually has 2 badges. We're going to just go ahead and offer him a contract. Take a look here at quarterbacks coach, who is a passing expert. When they have badges, I like to just keep them by default. If they don't have badges, I like to try to go find a player that does. So Stephen Glover does not. So we will go ahead and try to hire a new coach. Stephen Glover is our defensive line coach. So let's see if there's any badges for defense here. We have a passing expert and an inspirational leader. So there's got to be a hired defensive coach here. But none of them have any type of boost. So Owen Craig, in terms of defense, fair and evaluation. Raphael Sherman seems to be a very balanced coach. So we'll go offer him a contract. So that fills all our coordinator positions. That fills all our position coaches. The last one is going to be scouts. We don't use all that often, but we'll just continue to have these guys around and know that we have to focus on that a little bit more on the next episode. So that gives us our full coaching staff. We'll take a look at our facilities here. Still not really comfortable with how much money we have. We only have $159 million. We've yet to re-sign our free agents. So going through player contracts, go ahead and offer out everyone we just signed. The cheaper players will put on the long-term deals. No one's actually rejected one of those long-term contracts yet, which I'm a bit surprised about. Well, I had to say something, didn't I? Nicholas Ritchie and Keegan Moody. Really? This is what you're going to do to me, Keegan? We're family. All right. So we'll go into the offseason, see what our finances look like. Actually need to sign more players. So let's take a look and see. We'll go into the offseason, and we'll see exactly who we have as far as free agents. So that should reissue our money. Go over to the facilities, and we'll just take care of this poor bus that we have. Part of me is worried about the injuries that we've had and if by chance this can't help us. So let's get the least expensive facility for improving injury time. The massage room took a pretty good amount of money from us. But let's see if we've got any players available that are solid in free agency. We've got a little bit of money to deal with here if we can get kind of a young player. Raymond Jefferson is a B-plus receiver. Brian Atkins is an A lineman. You know, I wouldn't mind having both of them, but I don't know that we can afford both of them. So Jefferson is 28 years old. Atkins is 29 years old. Let's see who wants less money. Atkins wants $11.2 million for 5 years. Jefferson wants $10.4 for 4. Let's see where we really need help the most at. We have an A-plus receiver in Sean Murray from last year. We have a B-plus offensive lineman in Daryl Morris, and we've got 2 offensive linemen here that are 30 and 31. So I think the logical route is going to be trying to make a play on Brian Atkins, even though he's 29 himself. I wonder, take a look at Dante Burgess. A little bit less effective in the blocking, a little bit less awareness, a little bit less fit. You know, feels like a lot of regression. Let's go ahead and see if we can't offer Brian Atkins a kind of a long-term deal. he does not take it. Michael Carr, just a little too old, I think, at 31. I guess Dante Burgess would still technically be a increase from where we are. $4.1 million for 4 years. So we do get a little bit of a push. And let's see, maybe if we can't have a pure aerial assault, I don't want to leave with less than 100 million here. Defensive lineman Jacob Payne, 23 years old. That's actually relatively inexpensive too. Let's see if we can get him for $6 million. No. Probably should have offered more. This is a bad call. Let's go back and see if we can't get this wide receiver for 2. I feel like he's only going to be productive for 2 years. We'll offer him $11.2 million for 2 years. So that gives us kind of a new deep threat in terms of offense as well. So that's going to be the new look offense here, led by Johnny Poole, 20 years old. Clayton McKinney comes back with Jack Russell as our running backs. Sean Murray, Raymond Jefferson, Charles Foster, Craig Beck, and Chad Dean lead our wide receivers. We are still woeful at tight end with Cameron Perkins and Toby Clark. Mildly revamped offensive line with Darren Morris, Lucas Winston, Omar Cruz, Gary Knight, and the new signing there, Dante Burgess. Defensive line has Clark Peters, solid first-round pick of our draft, Billy Ho, going into his 3rd year as a starter, Brendan Steele and Donnie McDaniel. Wade Wise, another great pickup for us on that first year. Steve Hale and Emilio Mason are our solid linebacking core with solid backups behind them. In fact, we traded for kind of the stud player, Samuel Luttrell, and he's not even on the field over Emmanuel Mason. We may actually end up pulling him out for Wade Wise and see if we can't maybe look to trade Wade later on. Fernando Black, Dustin Dunn, the GOAT, Austin Carpenter, Jerome Harvey, and Nicholas Ritchie lead our defensive backs, which, apart from me, are really young. Kicker and punter, I feel like we're all set. So 99 overall team morale, 120 million sitting in the bank going into the 2023 season. I'm pretty happy with that. That's 2 playoff games in 3 years. Even though we didn't win, team is in really good shape and we're growing. And most importantly, we have a ton of money. So we will go ahead and explore the 2023 season tomorrow. I appreciate you guys watching this, and I will be back in the week with more commentary.